Hi everyone, today we're going to be exploring the do's and don'ts of silica and how I use this stuff to preserve my flowers. Okie dokie, so I've been asked a lot about this and so I thought I'd just make a video on it. So I'm going to start off, I've just got a very thin Tupperware here and I've put a very small layer of silica across the bottom, making sure it's fully covered. And then I've got a selection of pansies from my garden. And I'm just going to arrange them on the tray. So I started with some of the larger ones and then I'm going to fit the smaller ones around them. And I absolutely love this. So if you'll notice, I'm using tweezers where I can. If I use my fingers, it's purely because something's being a bit fiddly. You really should try not to use your fingers because the oils on your fingers can damage the petals. So I'm going to get them all into this shallow tray. I'm going to move them around a little bit just so that they all fit. And then we're going to add a second layer on. Now I got these trays from Amazon. I will put a link in the description for you if you're interested. These are brilliant for flatter flowers like these. Obviously with pansies you can press them. And there are videos on my channel, I'll try and link to one for you. I have done videos where I have pressed flowers like these. But sometimes you want them to be a little bit more textured, a little bit more 3D. So as you can see, some of these are curling or they're wrinkled. And when you use the press, you don't get that. So I'm just going to go over the flowers now. I'm just putting silica on, ensuring that all the petals are staying as flat as possible. You'll notice when I get the tweezers out, I'm going to try and this one is very bent. So I'm going to try and open it up and fill it with silica, and then the weight of the silica will help it stay flat. This can have a negative effect if you've got something like a rose or a large flower with softer petals. You can crush them with silica, so you do have to be really, really careful. I will go on to how you do something more 3D like a rose in a minute. So we're just going to start off with these. So as you can see, I'm just flattening this one out, and then I'm going to pour a little bit of silica on top to keep it in that position. I'm then going to go over and do a very thin layer of silica all over these, and we're going to put a second layer of flowers. You can fit as many flowers as you can into your tubs. You need to make sure that they are fully covered top and bottom and around the sides. So you really, if you can avoid it, shouldn't have your flowers touching. Because then they will just create moisture with and for each other. So as you can see, I've fully covered that layer, and then I'm going to add some more onto this layer. These are quite shallow, but they are deep enough to do 2 layers of these. So there you go, I've filled up the second layer, and we're going to add our silica on top of this again to complete our second layer. Same process, flatten them out, cover them up, and then we're going to leave them. Now these are very thin, very small flowers. These will only take a couple of days, obviously depending on the sort of humidity and the temperature where you are. But these won't take very long at all. These will take a couple of days. I think in the end I did 5 days, but they definitely could have come out at 4. I just didn't have time. So I took them out after 5 days and they were fine. If you stay until the end, I will show you how these look when they come out. Clip the lid on and they are done. You need to make sure they are in an airtight container. Now the don'ts. This flower drying silica that I bought, first of all, it was the only one I could find on Amazon. So I bought it and I went with it, and it was a mistake. I'm not saying that this stuff is bad because I have found fantastic uses for this. However, drying delicate flowers it is not good for. So with my rose there, I'm just taking some of the petals out of the centre just to give it a sort of wider shape. I'm removing all the leaves, and then we're cutting off the heads. You want to leave a little bit of the stem so that your flowers don't fall apart. And then here I'm just removing the outer petals that are either slightly damaged or that make the rose look lopsided. And I am opening it up with my fingers. This is a bad thing. As I've said, the oils can damage the petals. If you want to do this, use a gloved hand, or you can blow into the rose, which will open it up. So these are the beads. These aren't sand like the fine sand before. These are beads. And so I'm going to put my roses in. I'm going to fill it up correctly. So I'm filling around the flowers first. You want to support those outer petals. So I'm going to get my spoon and I'm going to feed this around the flowers. you want to make sure that there is enough around the sides that it won't collapse. And then slowly you're going to fill up the middle. Okay, now as you can see, the size of these beads compared to the petals, these are not great for drying delicate flowers. I liked these ones because can you see they're orange? Those will turn green when it is fully used. So silica, you can dry it out in the oven and reuse it. So the nice thing about this is you can see some green ones there. The orange turns green when it needs to be recharged. So there's the rose out. I mean, it dried it well. I'm not knocking it. It did dry it well. But as you can see here, can you see it's got like little bumps and lumps in it? That's what the beads have done to these really delicate petals, which is a shame. But it does dry them beautifully. I've got both roses out there. You know, they've kept their colour as I expected. They are set up nicely. So that's not a problem. Now let's look at how we're going to do this in a better way. Unfortunately, this is still an earlier video. I don't have any current roses to show you, unfortunately. So I am using my fingers, and I really shouldn't be without wearing gloves. But same process. I am clearing off any sort of dead petals. I'm taking off all the leaves to press. I find leaves press better than putting them in silica. They're just easier to deal with. So I'm removing all the leaves to dry them with my press. And then we're going to remove any dead petals from the outside of the rose, like these ones. And then again, we're going to cut it off just under the head of the rose, ready to be put into the silica. So once you've made sure everything is ready to go, you can do that. So this one is much, much smaller, as you can see. So I'm just cutting off the heads. I feel a bit like Morticia Addams every time I do this. I want to do the quote from the Addams Family where she deadheads the roses and carries the stems around. So again, I'm just removing. Now this rose actually fell apart on me. So what I decided to do was take all the petals out and press them individually. So that's what I was doing with this one. Now I've got a red and a yellow rose. So this is the fine silica again. I've put a base in, and then as you can see, I'm very gently filling up just the centre of that rose. Okay, and I'm tapping it just to make sure it gets all the way down to the bottom, because the petals in a rose are quite tightly packed at the bottom. So I'm filling it up, and then I'm going around the outside. So again, I'm supporting the outside petals, fill the silica around the outside, and then over the top. And then you want to pat it down to make sure it fits. Same with the yellow one. Remove any of the slightly dodgy looking petals. Give it a bit of a blow to make sure it opens up. That is a much better way of doing it than sticking your fingers inside it. So got all the sort of grungy petals off, giving it a blow off camera, which has opened it up a little bit there. Again, don't put your fingers in unless you're wearing gloves. I'm going to fill it up slightly inside, give it a tap, put it in. Fill silica around the edge to protect those outer petals there. Can you see a petal almost got crushed by it? So I used my tweezers to move it out of the way before I added more. Okay, and then you want to give it a bit of a tap down, which I did as I turned it. And then we can keep them. These took about 2 weeks. 12 days I think these were. And they come out absolutely beautifully. What you will notice when you take them out is they sound like old paper. They have a slight crunch to them, but again, please use gloves. Please use gloves. Okay, now we're going to have a look at those pansies that we did at the beginning of the video. So again, this was 5 days. It could have been 4. And I am a bit more aware now of good things and bad things to do with silica and flowers. So I'm just going to tip out the first layer. I have got a fish slice there. That's great for some of your bigger flowers. And then I'm using my long tweezers. These tweezers are incredible. I'll link them below. I absolutely love these. They're brilliant. And they don't hurt my hand because they've got a long handle. It's less pressure on my hand than short tweezers. I'm not entirely sure why, but I love them. So I'm just delicately pulling these out. I don't want to yank them through the silica because that could damage them. And if you'll notice there, I've got a sieve over the bucket of silica. That is to ensure that any bits of stem or petal or things that break off don't live in your silica, because they can live there and then they can sort of discolour any future flowers or things like that. So I just put it through a sieve to make sure that it's cleaner. So again, I'm going to tip it through. I'm going to use my tweezers to select some of the flowers. I'm just popping them in this tray where I store them. Once they are dried, you are going to want to store them in somewhere that is pretty much airtight. I will often add some of the larger beads of silica in the same drawer. Or alternatively, you can get the little packs of the beads, can't you, when you buy, I don't know, purses or handbags or trainers, things like that. Keep those little sachets. They are good to keep with your dried flowers to keep the moisture out. But you do want to sort of keep them in an airtight container where possible. These ones, I actually dried these pansies a while ago. And then about 2-3 weeks ago, we had a huge heat wave here in the UK. And just before that, I was doing a commission with some letters, which you may have seen. And I had my pansies out because I was putting pansies in it. And I didn't put my tray away properly. I left it on the table and I just covered it with, I think it was a piece of paper, because I was planning to come back and do it the next day. Unfortunately, then the temperature got so hot. Oh, you see there, you see it broke because I didn't continue using my fish slice. But I can still use that petal. So the temperature was so hot that I couldn't actually do any resin, because when the temperature is too hot, it will cure your resin so much faster. Resin gives off heat, so if you do it in a hot environment, it will go quicker. So I had to leave the pieces for a few days until it had cooled down. And then I went to get my pansies out for my next pour, and they were not hot. They were not dry anymore. They'd all filled the moisture from the air, and so then I had to re-dry them, which is why I'm doing them like this. So these had been pre-dried, and as you can see, even if they get full of moisture and dry again, they still dry beautifully. Silica has completely changed my life. There you go. There's the fish slice, using that one to get it out perfectly. The fish slice is great for bigger flowers, for wider flowers especially. And I'm just going to keep repeating this process, putting them in my drawer, going through with the sieve, and just getting them all out. I absolutely love silica. It's a game changer. It takes almost the same amount of time as in a press, I'll give you that. But it gives such a beautiful response. Those roses look as fresh as the day you bought them. They are 3D, they have the multiple petals. It is beautiful. So I've got all those out now. I'm just going to tidy it up, and you'll see at the end what gets left in the sieve. And then that can just go in the bin. You can see all the little bits there. So yeah, if you have any more questions about silica, let me know in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, guys. Keep crafting, and I'll see you soon. Bye.